Have you ever said, "No thank you," in a calm, respectful voice, only to be told you had an attitude? It can feel confusing, even a little disorienting. You replay the moment in your head. Was my tone sharp? Did I sound annoyed? Should I have smiled more? Should I have explained myself? But often, the issue isn't your delivery at all. It's the outcome. One of the most overlooked truths about human communication is this: tone is frequently judged by result, not by how something was actually said. If someone likes the answer, they'll usually interpret the tone as pleasant. If they don't like the answer, they may reinterpret even the most polite response as rude, cold, dismissive, or attitude. In other words, the emotional reaction comes first, and the explanation comes second. Psychologically, many people decide almost instantly, "I don't like this answer." And once that feeling is there, the brain searches for a reason to justify it. That reason often becomes, "You didn't say it nicely," or "You had a tone." But what's really happening is that the refusal itself is uncomfortable. It disrupts expectations. It removes a possibility. It forces the person to adjust their plans, their desires, or their sense of control. And discomfort needs somewhere to go. Labeling the other person as rude is an easy place to put it. Think about how differently the same tone can be perceived depending on context. If someone says, "Sure, that works," in a neutral voice, we hear it as cooperative. But if that same neutral voice says, "No, that doesn't work," suddenly it can sound harsh, even though the delivery hasn't changed at all. The only thing that changed is the outcome. This is why polite refusals can still be interpreted as disrespect. Not because the speaker was disrespectful, but because the listener feels disappointed, rejected, or inconvenienced, and those feelings color perception. There's also a deeper human tendency at play. People generally prefer certainty, agreement, and smooth interactions. A yes maintains connection and predictability. A no introduces friction. It signals a boundary, and boundaries limit access to time, energy, help, attention, or approval. For some people, that limitation feels threatening, even if they can't articulate why. So instead of recognizing the boundary as valid, they interpret it as personal. And once it feels personal, the narrative shifts from "they can't" or "they don't want to" "they're being difficult." Another reason explanations are often demanded is that people are trying to restore a sense of control. If they know why you said no, they may believe they can fix the obstacle, negotiate, or at least reassure themselves that the refusal wasn't about them personally. But when the answer is simply "No, thank you," there's nothing to negotiate. The boundary stands on its own. Emotionally secure people tend to accept this without issue. They hear a refusal as information: this person isn't available for that request. No drama, no assumptions, no need to reinterpret tone. But people who are uncomfortable with boundaries may experience the same refusal as a disruption of the relationship itself. They may wonder, consciously or unconsciously, "Are we still okay? Did I do something wrong? Why wouldn't you want to?" And those questions can quickly morph into defensiveness. What's important to remember is that politeness does not guarantee acceptance. You can be calm, respectful, and kind, and someone can still be upset, because politeness doesn't remove disappointment. So if you find yourself being told you have an attitude when you know you spoke respectfully, it may help to consider this possibility: they aren't reacting to your tone. They're reacting to the fact that the answer wasn't the one they wanted. Your no didn't violate social rules. It violated expectations. And expectations can be powerful. When they aren't met, people often look for a cause that preserves their sense of fairness and self-image. It feels easier to conclude that someone was rude than to accept that they simply declined. Ultimately, a respectful refusal is not aggression. It is information about your limits. Healthy communication allows space for both requests and boundaries. Not every request will be granted, and not every refusal needs to be softened into an apology or defended with a detailed explanation. Sometimes, no, thank you, is already complete. And if someone still hears attitude in that, it may say less about your tone, and more about how difficult it is for them to hear no.